items. And we do have some speakers this evening, so welcome to you. I just need to make sure that everybody is comfortable, that they understand that they need to be muted unless they're speaking, and also that they've got the agenda, that they've got any devices turned to silent so that they don't interrupt as if you are speaking, and if there are any declarations of interest before we start. No declarations of interest. Councillor Graham.
Mike Potter's got his hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I've been lobbied on item 11.
Yeah, this is Mike Potter. I've been lobbied on items 7 and 11.
Yeah, this is Councillor Mackenzie. I've been lobbied on 7, 9, 11 and 12.
Caroline, it's Michael Cleary. I've been lobbied on 7 and 11 by email and telephone, personal, non-prejudicial, non-pecuniary.
Can I just point out while it's all quiet that if you raise your hand using the symbol on the screen, you've got to put your hand down again by clicking on the hand again.
Thank you.
Tony's got his hand up.
You're muted, Caroline, if you're speaking.
Apologies, everybody. Right, I've got a very long declaration to make. So I've been lobbied on items 8 and 11. I know the applicants at 11 and 12. So that's my declaration. Sorry, who else has declarations? Let me quickly go there. Tony. Tony, could you make your declarations? I can't see you, but your hand is up.
Yes, I've been lobbied on item 7.
Item 7, thank you. Anyone else got any declarations to make?
Yes, please.
Yeah, yes, Eric.
Yeah, item 9.
Item 9, thank
Been
you.
lobbied personal, non-prejudicial.
Thank you very much. I actually have missed an item on the agenda, which is apologies for absence, but I don't think there are any because everybody is here. So minutes of the last meeting. We've all seen the minutes of the last meeting. If you are happy with those minutes, would somebody like to propose and second them, please?
I move that they be carried.
Thank you, Michael.
I'll second that if you want.
Is that Steve?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Is everybody happy with those minutes? Please indicate if you're not. Okay, we'll take that.
I want to abstain because I only did half the meeting.
Okay, okay, thanks, Eric.
Technical problems.
Thank you. Right, urgent business. I do have some urgent business, but I'm going to leave that to the end. If you don't mind, I'd like to get us pushed on the agenda. So the first item on the agenda is item 6, which is application number 20/00353, Major Full, Land off Town Street, Old Malton. And I think it's Alan Goforth that's going to deal with this for us. Alan, would you like to make your presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this item relates to an application for major development. It's also subject to a number of objections. The site itself is previously developed land, albeit outside the development limits of Old Malton. It is quite a sensitive site, conservation area adjacent to a visually important undeveloped area. And within the setting of various listed buildings, and there's also sensitivities in terms of drainage and highways. Just to briefly update members, since the publication of the report, as you'll see, that there are consultees who still need to make comments on the proposals. Some of those comments have been received and will be detailed in the report to the next meeting. And the applicant is also in the process of amending plans, looking to address the comments that are reported.
Is now joining.
So the recommendation to members is, in light of the scale of the development and the sensitivities of the site and the local interest, that it would be helpful for members to visit the site to inspect prior to determining the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I'm going to agree with this. I'm going to see if I can reach Councillor Andrews and say, are you happy to propose a site visit, Councillor Andrews? I'm really sorry, Councillor Andrews, I can't hear you.
That's not music.
You're singing beautifully, though, Paul.
Are we talking about Town Street, Old Malton?
We are talking about the application for the land off Town Street at Old Malton. Yes.
Yeah, I propose that, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that, please?
Yeah, I'll second it if you want.
Thank you, Steve. So, members, is anybody not willing to do a site visit, or are you happy? Are all members happy to have a site visit? Right, I'm going to take that we are having a site visit. Thank you, members.
Yeah, you can't see everyone, can you, Caroline?
No, I can't.
Yeah, we all had a thumbs up.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Steve. So we'll move swiftly on to item 7. Which is application 20/00416/73, land west of the Cayley Arms, Alliston, and that I think is on page
7.
Sorry, Gary. Page 37. Sorry. And Alan, are you presenting this one again, please?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, the application is for the variation of a number of conditions associated with the planning permission that was granted last year. The application came before members of planning committee at that time. The application related to 3 holiday cabins. This application seeks material amendments to that permission. It's reported to committee due to objections from the parish council and 1 local resident. The site is within an area of high landscape value, and there is the extant permission for 3 holiday cabins. The principle of development is therefore not for consideration in this evening, as that has previously been established as acceptable. In terms of the proposals, each cabin is to be 2 metres longer and 1 metre wider than currently permitted. There are also minor adjustments to the layout, spacing, internal access road and parking, which will be provided adjacent to each cabin. The overall siting and scale is unchanged, and the increased footprint can be accommodated without resulting in any visual sensitivities which were not previously considered. The external materials and existing and proposed landscape screening would reduce visual intrusion and allow the development to assimilate with the hillside backdrop without breaching the skyline. With regard to the highway's impact, there would be no change to the vehicle movements previously considered or the access arrangement or visibility. Those matters were previously deemed acceptable. The on-site parking provision has been reduced to reflect the size and type of holiday accommodation being proposed, and this addresses the highway officer's initial concerns. The highways related conditions have been updated to reflect the approved documents and drawings. With regard to drainage, the highways officer initially raised concerns in relation to surface water runoff discharging onto the public highway and the effectiveness of the installed land drain. These concerns were shared by the parish council. The highways officer requested a permeable access track and an upgrade to the land drainage system in order to contain the surface water runoff into the existing watercourse and prevent overland flow onto the public highway. The drainage plan has subsequently been amended to the satisfaction of the highways officer, and it will be covered by planning condition that will ensure any previous deficiencies in the drainage arrangements will be rectified. In conclusion, the 3 holiday cabins as amended can be accommodated without giving rise to unacceptable visual intrusion or impact on the character of the locality. Proposed development would not have an unacceptable impact on local amenity or highway safety, and it is therefore recommended that planning permission is granted subject to the 14 conditions as listed in the planning report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. Does any member have questions? There is no local member in attendance, so I'll start at the top of the list. I know it's boring, but Councillor Andrews, do you have any questions?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary?
No questions, Madam Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graham? Thank you. I have one question, but I'll leave mine till the end. Councillor Hope? Councillor Hope, do you have any questions? You might be on mute, Councillor Hope. I'll come back to Councillor Hope. Councillor Mason?
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie?
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Potter?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I notice in passing that the agricultural building that was there for the housing of sheep, allegedly, even though I never see any sheep there, is currently being it's having wooden panelling put up at the sides, and I was under the impression that that was built as per plan. And I'm just wondering, has that building got anything to do with this current application? Is it going to be fenced off? Have they actually got permission to alter that building?
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Yes, the permission for the agricultural building has recently been varied. The application, I haven't got the reference number to hand. It was actually dealt with under delegated powers, but it was changes to the materials related to that building. The actual agricultural building and this application site is all in different ownership to when the original permissions were granted, and the applicants have been seeking adjustments to those plans. It does fall within the same application boundary, albeit the building would still be, as it stands, it is due to be used for agricultural purposes for the housing of machinery and livestock.
Lovely. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mike. Councillor Ryby?
No questions, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Windress?
No questions, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I just have a question, please, of officers. It's to do with condition 12, which is to do with the lighting on the site, because Alliston is in a possibly what would be termed as a relatively dark sky area, and there doesn't seem to be a time limit or a mechanism in which where perhaps the lights only come on when they're needed. Can I ask you about that, please, Alan?
Yes, in terms of the lighting scheme, as it stands, it would be a series of bollards that would line the access roads and lead up to the parking areas and the fronts of the cabins. The scheme has been adjusted because when it first came in as part of this application, it was quite a large number of bollards. That's been reduced, but as it stands, the condition only relates to them completing the lighting in accordance with that drawing. So in terms of any light pollution and the hours of use, it is possible for the wording of that condition to be adjusted for us to potentially approve a scheme relating to the hours of use or the use of sensors, should members consider that appropriate.
My personal preference might be for sensors, and that way they're lit as people need to have the light to get to and from the cabins, and when they're not moving around, then that light isn't on. So that would be my personal choice, but I will ask members after it's been debated how they want to proceed on that. So if there are no further questions, I'll open it up for debate, and I'll go first, because there's no local member, to Councillor Andrews.
No, nothing to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, it's interesting history of this, and it seems the site has come back to us a number of times. I think I would go and propose approval as per the recommendation and subject to a slightly beefed up condition 12 on the lighting. Wording to be agreed, but I think the idea of sensors minimising the amount of light pollution would be good. I'm sure the technical details can be squared away by delegation. So I would propose approval as per recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Councillor Graham.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Right. Yes, I agree about the lighting, but other than that, I would have no objection to this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graham. Councillor Hope.
You're still muted, Eric.
Get me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thanks, Eric.
No questions, thank you.
We've actually moved into debate, Eric. Sorry, that's my fault. We missed you on the questions.
Yeah, well, I missed a lot, and it just keeps fading, does mine.
Right.
Yeah, no comments, no debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Councillor Mason.
No, I'll echo your point on the lights, and I'll make the climate change point that it's saving a bit of carbon as well by turning the lights off when they're not needed. And I'll second Michael's proposal to approve.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Mackenzie.
Yes, I note from the report that it's not only supporting tourism in the area, but the updating of the size of these cabins would also help with disabled people. So I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Yes, I'm quite pleased to see that the new owners of the site seem to be making the effort to regularise various conditions and rather than breaching them. And they seem to be making an effort to comply with all the requests such as drainage and so on. Yes, certainly agree with the lights issue, although I think nowadays with the LEDs, there's much less intrusion than there was with those vile allergen thing. So yeah, I'm sure that we can come to a much better agreement in the conditions. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ryby.
Yeah, I approve of it, and I think the giving access to disabled people and is a good thing. So yeah, I approve of the application.
Thank you. Councillor Windruss.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. From my own perspective, this site has had a very difficult past, and there have been issues around the site. I'm glad to see that it's being regularised. It does support the tourist economy. It does support disabled access, and I'm happy to support my committee members' proposal and seconding for approval, subject to the lighting being either sought out by Sensor. So that would be really helpful. So I'm going to gallop down the list, members, if that's okay, just so that we have a proper record of your approvals. And can I start with Councillor Andrews, please?
Approved, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary.
Approve.
Councillor Graham. Thank you. I myself approve. Councillor Hope.
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Approve.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Approve.
Councillor Ryby.
Approved.
Thank you. Councillor Windruss.
Approve.
Thank you, members. That's approved unanimously, subject to condition 12 being adapted, and the officers will be delegated to do that, if that's okay. Thanks, Alan. Item 8 on your agenda, members. I'm just going to quickly go back to my beginning. Item 8 is Toft Farmhouse. That's Goose Track Lane, West Lilling. That's page 64, members, on your agenda. And I think this is Ellie. Is Ellie going to present this one? Hello, Ellie. We also have a speaker on item 8, Helen Heward, I think it is. Ellie, can you hear me?
I think Jill's talking, but you're muted, Jill.
Right. Jill, can you hear me?
No, Jill's still muted.
Jill, you're still muted. Gary, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Right. We seem to be having some technical issues getting either Jill or Ellie.
Are they still in the meeting? Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I can still see. I can see Jill, but she's marked as muted. She's talking and waving her hand, but it's not doing any better than that.
Jill, I'm really sorry, we can't hear you.
Can Paul hear us? Paul
Yes,
Taylor.
I can hear you.
No, Paul Taylor. Is there any way of contacting Jill? What do we understand to be the problem?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you
Yeah.
see me?
No.
No.
You're still marked as muted on the screen.
Well, I've just unmuted myself on my laptop and so it's showing as unmuted.
Well, we can hear you now, Jill, but we can't see you.
Right, I'll quickly run through this item and then I'll try and share the photographs.
Okay, great,
thank you. Of the site and the presentation. Okay, members.
Concern is because we can't see you, we might not be able to see the presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shall I just? I'll introduce it at first, and then I'll try and go through the presentation.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a householder application, an application for a carport and an extension to a standalone outbuilding in the garden of the property. That outbuilding is already in an ancillary residential use, used as part of the dwelling. And the extension to that building is to provide further ancillary residential space. I think it was the applicant's intention that perhaps her mother would move to the property with her, and it would become a form of space that her mother would use. In design terms, we consider the proposal to be acceptable. The carport is set back into the site. It's constructed of natural materials and it's domestic in scale. The extension is designed to be subservient to the cart shed outbuilding, and we take the view that it wouldn't detract from its very traditional character. We're of the view that the proposal wouldn't have an unacceptable impact on the amenity of any occupier of neighbouring properties, and there is sufficient car parking and turning space retained on the site with the proposed works. The application has been brought to the committee on the basis that there is an objection from the occupier of a neighbouring property and the parish council. I think both the occupier of the neighbouring property and the parish council have raised some concerns that the cart shed outbuilding there should be an application to use that as ancillary accommodation. There isn't a need for that. That is in residential use already. The occupier of the neighbouring property has also raised some issues which are not really material considerations, planning considerations, they are more civil matters. The parish council has also raised some concerns around highway safety, but members will see from the report that the Highway Authority certainly isn't raising any objections to the scheme. It's probably also worth noting that the occupier of the neighbouring property isn't objecting on the basis of design at all, or indeed on any sort of impact on residential amenity. There are no updates to the report, Chairman, and the recommendation is outlined. So I'll just now try and dash back and share the screen to go through the photos.
Jill, I'm really sorry, nothing's coming up on the screens. Oh.
Something different briefly happened, but then we went back again.
Sorry, Jill, if you can hear me, we're not getting anything on the screen in the form of a presentation and we can no longer hear you.
Councillor Goodrick?
Yes.
I'm just wondering whether Paul Taylor is able to access anything with the presentation, Paul?
Thanks, Paul.
Mhm.
Thank you, Paul. We can now see the planning committee presentation page.
Thank you, Paul. Could you scroll through the presentation until we get to this item, please?
Could you enlarge it as well, please, Paul?
It's when you get to the end of these photographs, it will be the next item. That's it. Thank you, Paul. Could you move to the next photograph, please? Members, this is the property just off Goose Track Lane. The first little red square is the position of the proposed position of the carport. And the second red square towards the left-hand side of the screen is the position of the proposed extension to the domestic outbuilding, which is there. The neighbouring property is just to the rear here. Just move on to the next slide, please, Paul.
Jill, can I say we've got a blank screen here?
Can I just can I check if all of the members can see the presentation?
No.
No, I can't.
No.
I can.
Yes, I can.
Who's on an iPad?
Yes,
Who's on a PC?
I'm on an iPad, Steve. I can see it.
No, it's not that then.
Yeah, and I'm on a laptop and I can see it.
So, Councillor Hope and Councillor Mackenzie, you can't see the presentation.
No, I can't see it.
No, can't see it.
Right. Paul, is there anything that you can think that might be preventing these two members from seeing the presentation, please? Okay, that would be very good. Thank you for that, Paul. And Councillor Mackenzie, please, Paul. Mackenzie.
And Councillor Graham.
And Councillor Graham, you can't see it either, Sue.
No.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Jill, do you want to carry on? I'm sorry, members, to those members that can't see the presentation, and we'll have to investigate after this meeting as to why you weren't able to see the screen. Jill, do you want to carry on, please? Okay. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the front of the property. This is the property here. It's just behind those gates. You can the carport will be sited. You can just see the pitched roof of a little porch, and that's where the carport will be in line with. So set well back from the road. You can just in the distance see the roof of the outbuilding that is currently used as ancillary accommodation. Could you move to the next slide for me, please, Paul? This is just a view from the back garden, looking towards Goose Track Lane. And the car there really is in the position of where the carport will be. Some of the vegetation will be cleared a little bit because the carport's designed to be two bays next to each other. Can you move to the next slide for me, please, Paul? This is just looking into the back garden. This is the converted cart shed. It's interesting, there's quite an old wall that sort of splits the garden a little bit. And the extension to the cart shed will be sort of in this area behind that wall. Could you move to the next slide for me, please, Paul? And that's looking at that very spot really. This is the neighbouring property. This is the cart shed, and this is the area in which the extension to the cart shed will go. Built to the same eaves height, slightly lower, just under ½ a metre lower to ridge height. Move to the next slide for me, please, Paul. And that's just looking back from the position of where the outbuilding is now and where the extension will be back into the rest of the garden. And I think that might be it, but can you just check? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jill. I will open it up for questions. The local member is Eric Hope. Eric, do you have any questions, please?
No questions.
Oh, sorry.
Chairman.
I need to stop you. Sorry, we do have a speaker on this item. Good evening, Mrs. Heward. My apologies. Do you want to make your case to the committee, please? And welcome.
Thank you, Chair. That's very kind of you. The technology is interesting, isn't it?
It is very interesting.
I don't want to really add to the planning merits. I think the planning officers have summed it up for you, and you know your policies without me trying to recite anything. I just wanted to tell the committee about why I want this extension, and it's because of my mum, Millie, who moved to Mickle Hill at Pickering, and that has been great until COVID. And mum is on autoimmune suppressant drugs, and Dr. Kopak said to her, do you want to come off them, Millie? And we discussed it, and we decided that the risks were best if she stayed on the drugs because of the amount of support she would need. And so that opens up a can of worms about support, care, etc. and everything. And it's just too much for me to get from here to Pickering 2-3 times a week. She's 88. She has nursing care. She needs me for a lot of things. Before COVID, it was fine. But if Mickle Hill shuts down again, we can't cope. I need a plan to have her here with me. And that's it. It's as simple as that. Some members might have seen that my house is up for sale. And it is, because when I saw the letter from my neighbour, I just don't know if I can go through that again. I need all options. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Heward, and please, I do understand the difficult situation that you are in from a personal perspective, so I hope you get sorted out.
Thank you.
I will open this up for questions, and the local member is Eric Hope. Eric, can you hear me? If you can hear me, you're on mute if you have any questions. Okay, I will go down the list and hope that Eric can join us later. Councillor Andrews.
No questions, no comments, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary.
No questions, thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Graham. Thank you. Councillor Mason.
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, just one question. From the objector, he's saying that it's not safe. They can't turn the car anymore, and that conflicts with the officer's report that the place for turning is still available. Can you just reassure us that it's definitely still, there's a ability to turn around so it's not backing onto the highway?
There is the ability to turn around. The space is retained on the site and will be retained on the site if the development goes ahead. I don't think it's been used, so it's perhaps a little bit overgrown. But this certainly wouldn't prejudice the ability to be able to do that manoeuvre from the site. Excellent, thank you, Jill. That's what I wanted to hear.
Thanks, Mike. Councillor Ryby.
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Windress.
No questions, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Hope. Councillor Hope, do you have any questions?
Yeah. No questions, Chairman.
Thank you.
I'll support this.
Thank you. I've got no questions. Eric, I'm going to come to you as the local member to start the debate.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm having horrendous problems with my iPad, so if I go, you know where I've gone.
Do you want?
I think this property fits in quite nicely, and before tonight I didn't hear the lady's speech, but certainly endorsed what I was thinking. I'm quite happy to support this application.
Are you at the point of proposing it, Eric, or do you want to hear what the members have to say?
Well, no, I'll propose that go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Eric. Right, Councillor Andrews.
I'm happy to second the proposal, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Graham. Thank you. I'm getting good at lip reading as well now. Councillor Mason.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this, and I hope it makes a difference.
Yeah. Councillor Mackenzie.
Yes, happy to support it.
Okay. Councillor Potter.
Yes, same here.
Councillor Ryby.
Yes, I'm very happy to support it, Madam Chairman.
Okay. And Councillor Windress.
Yeah, I'm happy to support that, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. And from the chair, I'm very happy to support this. I understand the difficulties when caring for elderly parents, and I hope that this makes a significant difference and helps you. I'm going to whip down the list again to make sure that we've got all the votes properly accounted for. So, Councillor Andrews.
Approved, Chair.
Councillor Cleary.
Approve.
Councillor Graham.
Approved.
Thank you. Goodrick. Approved. Councillor Hope.
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Approve.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Approve.
Councillor Potter.
Approve.
Councillor Ryby.
Approved.
Thank you. Councillor Windress.
Approved, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, members. That's unanimously approved. Excellent. So we can now move on to item 9, which is on page 75 of your agenda. And this is application number 2000587. It's formation of a vehicular access and drop curve at Ash Tree House, Sheriff Hutton. And I think this is going to be Ellie Thompson, if she can join us.
I'm here, Chairman. Thank you.
Hello, Ellie.
Hello. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, this is a minor application for the formation of a vehicular access and the dropping of a curb. Essentially, this is a proposal to widen an existing access. The application site is located on the Strensall to Sheriff Hutton Road. The site is an established agricultural small holding from which operates an agricultural and horticultural diversification business in conjunction with a sister farm at Butterwick. The site is not open to the public and there are no direct on-site retail sales from the site. However, small stocks of surplus produce are sold from an honesty box stall, which is situated on the grass verge in front of the property. The current access to the site and the farmyard is via a legal right of way over an established access, which is owned by the neighbouring property Westley. The access runs between the two properties. The application has been made in order to create a private access to the property and to provide a safe area for people stopping at the honesty box stall to pull off the road and manoeuvre safely. It's my understanding that it's been made by the applicant in response to concerns raised by her neighbour, who is the occupier of Westley, regarding inconsiderate parking by users of the roadside stall. However, as members will have seen from the report, the neighbour has objected to the application, and the Parish Council have also objected. These objections include concerns over highway safety, increased vehicle movements, and impact on neighbouring amenity. And these objections are detailed and considered within the officer's report. Madam Chairman, it should be noted that the local highway authority has no objections to the proposed works and has stated that they welcome wide accesses on straight, long roads. All of these issues are outlined in the report and the recommendation is as outlined. Paul, could we look at the photos, please?
No.
I can, Paul, thank you.
That's brilliant, thanks Paul. So members, this is just an aerial photo which sort of indicates the position of the site and the surrounding properties on the Strensall to Sheriff Hutton Road. The access to the farmyard and the driveway, the house and the neighbouring property are all quite clear in the centre of the image there. If we could have the next photo, please, Paul. Thank you. So this is a more zoomed in image which shows the relationship between the properties and the access. The applicant's current driveway is visible and it is the area between that and the highway that the new drop curb and the hard standing is proposed. Thanks, Paul. Next slide, please. So this image is looking north towards Sheriff Hutton, and from the position where the increased hard standing is proposed. So what you see in this image, which is grass, that is proposed to become the hard standing. And you can also see the neighbouring property on the other side of the existing access there. Thank you, Paul. Next slide. This image is just looking across the highway towards the application site and the house. You can see the roadside stall and the section of the verge that is proposed to be removed. Thank you, Paul. Next slide. And this image looks sort of directly towards that site, and it's quite difficult to see on the picture, but there is just to the left-hand side of the round window, sort of on the right-hand side of the photograph, there is a very small stick that's been held up, which just shows it's there to demarcate the length of the hedge to be removed. Thank you, Madam Chairman. There are no more photos.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you for a very well done presentation.
Chairman, just to draw members' attention to the late pages, there is a letter from Sally Fairweather. It's just a page and a half, but I think Sally is registered to speak.
She is. That I'm just about to invite her in to speak.
Probably cover that ground.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Fairweather, if you're with us, would you like to make your representations to committee, please?
Hello there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So, for the want of not reiterating what Ellie has just said, this is my report on my behalf. So, located on the main Sheriff Hutton to Strensall Road, Ash Tree House has been an established agricultural smallholding for over 40 years. And access to both the farmyard and the house is via a legal right-of-way over land owned by the neighbouring property Westlea. And from Ash Tree House and our larger sister farm, Willow Farm, located near Butterwick in Malton, my husband and I run Willow Farm Produce, which is a diversification from both established farms. At both sites, we sell our surplus produce on honesty stalls at the gate. We are not open to the public and we have no plans to further develop our business at Ash Tree House. So at Ash Tree House, the issue of access and road safety has become contentious with increasing complaints from the neighbour, the owner of the neighbouring property, about friends, family, deliverers, drivers, passers-by who utilise the stall, either parking on the driveway or the main highway itself, even though there are no restrictions in place to prevent the latter. We fully accept that traffic has become heavier to the site in recent years, and especially since the advent of COVID-19, we have been utilising more home delivery services, which can lead to numerous drop-offs each day. We've also seen an increase in demand for the produce from our honesty stalls, but I must reiterate, we only sell surplus from these stalls, even though we have significantly more stock which we could sell by the roadside, but choose not to. Therefore, due to these issues, we're applying to create our own private access to the house, which will enable any visitors, be they personal or business related, to pull clear from the road, turn around and leave again without using the land owned by Westlea. This will be achieved by removing a section of our existing hedge and extending the existing driveway. It will be constructed sympathetically in keeping with the existing entrance according to the plans detailed in our application. We firmly believe that this will be of mutual benefit to both properties and it will increase safety on what is a busy stretch of road, not just now, but also for any residents in the future. As detailed in the Planning Officer's report, highways support this application. However, Lillings Amber Parish Council does not support it, even though they did not carry out a site visit, which we would have warmly welcomed. The neighbour, we feel, has become so focused on our business as the root cause of the issues that he has become blinkered as to the benefits of creating our own private driveway. We therefore hope that the Planning Committee can judge the application on its face value, a house wanting its own access with extended parking. We would also like to stipulate that if this application is not successful, none of the safety issues raised by the opposing neighbour will be remedied, as we will continue to live and work as we currently are. And it is quite possible that the COVID-19 situation will continue for a significant period yet. So we will be continuing to use personal delivery services rather than venturing to shops. And passers-by may continue to look to our stall for the same reasons. And we will continue to run our farm and welcome friends and family as we have previously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Fairweather. Right, I will open this up for questions from the members, and I'll start with Councillor Hope, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Running on the two properties, one in Buttercombe, is it? And how often are they going to have vehicles going from one farm to the other? And will there be any big over 7 tonners coming in?
Thank you, Councillor. There is no proposed increase in traffic movements between the two sites. They just happen to run to agricultural, horticultural sites, there's not going to be any sort of increase in large amounts of traffic as a result of this application.
Can I have a supplementary, please?
Yes, Eric.
Yeah. Why then on social media have you put, we have some fabulous seasonal vegetables, and sorry, I've lost my. We've got huge. We're also making huge plans for our future. Can you explain that?
Can I ask who this question's directed at?
I'm sorry, Dr. Fairweather. This is now a committee matter. You're not allowed to join in any further. But I beg your pardon. It has to go through the officer. Ellie.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor. So, could you repeat the question for me? Sorry, I didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, it was what sort of quantity of heavy goods vehicles, i.e. 7 tonners or above, are going to be delivering from this property? And you say you're not going to do much, but we have some. We're also making huge plans for our future, so that to me sort of flags up could be more vehicles coming in. Thank you.
Chairman, I think any of that could be occurring with any business, irrespective of the development that's being proposed. You know, this is an application for a roadside pull-in and a separate access to the dwelling to facilitate, and a separate access to the dwelling itself, and also a pull-off area for the honesty stall. I think the implications with regard to the horticultural business are, aside from that, either here or at Butterwick.
Yeah, it's what I was getting around about is the traffic. It's a horrendous bit of road, is that? A fast piece of road as well. We have had 3 deaths over the past few years, and I think it's. But I'd like to move that we have a site visit. That's in order.
Okay. Okay. We are in questions. So I'll come to Councillor Andrews.
Sorry.
It's all right. No.
Nope.
I'll come back to Councillor Andrews. Councillor Cleary, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Graham.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
No questions, thanks, Chair.
Councillor Ryedale.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Windress.
No questions, Madam Chairman, thank you.
I'll come back to Councillor Andrews. Do you have any questions for the officers, please, Councillor Andrews? Okay. No response from Councillor Andrews. Can I just ask for some clarification? Because the business, as I understand it, already exists. So one would assume that those approvals to run a business from this site are already in place, and what we are discussing this evening is the formation of a hard standing area in front of the business that would make actually stopping here a much safer operation. Is that true?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Right, thank you for that clarity, Ellie. Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to move it into debate, and Eric, I'm going to come back to you.
Yeah, as I say, I'll move that we have a site visit if that's in order.
Okay, well, that will be up to other members to see what happens with that. I'm going to start at the top of the list. Councillor Andrews, we are in debate. Do you wish to join us? Paul, can I just stop them? Paul Taylor, is it possible? Do we know if Councillor Andrews is still in the meeting and if he's having any technical difficulties? And if he is, can I ask you to see if you can resolve them with him, please? Thanks, Paul. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I know this bit of road quite well, and I think as the recommendation and as you have confirmed, the formation of a proper pull-off would be a good idea. I'm slightly disappointed that there's a piece of hedge being removed. I can see that the reason for that is so that they have the applicant has their own entrance on and off the road, but I think on balance I would support the application, even though I'm disappointed about the hedge removal.
Thanks, Councillor Cleary. Councillor Graham.
Yes, I'm just wondering if there's a point on this property where it would be more appropriate to have a pull-in or whatever without interfering with the neighbours' proximity, as it were. I don't know the area, so I can't judge that, but it sounds a bit as though it is a fast road. But if that could be done, I'm prepared to
Paul Andrews.
Thanks, Councillor Graham. Councillor Mason.
I think
is now exiting.
I know I'm not. I think I know that piece of road as well, to be honest. And when I first read this, I thought, what a good idea, because the pull off there would make it a hell of a lot safer, to be honest. That's really the only point I have. I think I have to echo Michael's point. It's a shame. It's a nice established hedge, but I can't really see any other option, really. I think safety trumps hedges on this one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Potter.
Oh, you've missed John.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Mackenzie. Sorry, John.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think it makes perfect sense for anybody to want their own drive, and I can't see anything else but that it would improve safety, road safety. So I would support it.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I have to say that I'm often rather perplexed by some of the objections, because, I mean, again, I know this piece of road, and quite clearly it's a very wide, straight, and therefore fast road, and this is providing a safe pull-in, which surely can only make it safer than having people pull up on the front. And I concur with what Michael said. Just on the point about would it be possible anywhere else, quite clearly that where it's been proposed links up with the existing parking, so anywhere else and it wouldn't link up. But yes, I can see absolutely no reason for objecting, and a lot of reasons, or very good reason, to approve of this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ryedale.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Councillor Windress.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I can't see any problem at all. It's got to make it safer, and even if they didn't use that, but the existing is legal anyway, so the existing entrance is legal, so no problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you. From the chair, I think this is a very good idea. I drive this road regularly, often 2 and 3 times a week, and I won't disagree with my colleague, Councillor Hope. It is an exceedingly fast road, but on this piece of where this property is situated, it is a clear view from both directions, and I think the formation of extra hard standing in support of this can only be good for safety. So I'm very happy to support the application, and in fact I'm happy to propose it from the chair since it hasn't been proposed, and I would ask if there is a member who is happy to second that.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Can I go down the list for votes? Councillor Andrews, I'm hoping you've been able to hear this debate. Do you have a decision? Clearly, Councillor Andrews is having problems. Councillor Cleary.
Approve, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Approve.
Thank you. Myself as proposer, I'll approve it. Councillor Hope.
Against.
Councillor Mason.
Approve.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Approve.
Councillor Potter.
Approve, but can I just say that there's no indication that Paul Andrews has left the meeting yet, because it says it down the meeting chat at the side.
Yeah, he's just not responding, Mike.
Yeah.
Councillor Ryby.
Approved.
Thank you. Councillor Windruss.
Approved, Madam Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. That's 11 votes for and 1 against. So it's carried.
Sorry, 8 votes for, Chairman.
Sorry, beg your pardon, 8 votes. You're absolutely right. Don't know why I said 11. Thank you. Moving on to item 10, which is on page 84. This is this is the erection of a 4-bedroom single-storey dwelling, part conversion of alterations to a steel-framed agricultural building at Knoll Hill Farm, Car Lane, Ampleforth. The application reference number is 2000626 full, and we do have a number of speakers. We have Mrs. Jury, Mr. Glenham, and did I say Mr. Blenkinghorn here as well? So can I ask Alan, please, to present?
Thank you, Chair. The application is reported to committee due to objections from local residents and concerns raised by the National Park Planning Authority and also concerns raised by the AONB manager.
Alan, can I just stop you very quickly? And my apologies, members. I should have declared that I am a member of the AONB Joint Advisory Committee. It's personal, non-prejudicial and non-pecuniary. Sorry, members, I should have declared that. And I
should declare that as well. I had completely not thought about
Paul
that.
No, I haven't, Sue.
Yes.
So thank
Is
you for
now
that.
joining.
Exactly the same goes for me, yes.
Thank you. Sorry, Alan, carry on, please. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Chair. The application site is within the open countryside, the AONB, and also within the setting of the North York Moors National Park. It is adjacent to a visually important undeveloped area known as Knoll Hill to the east of the application site, and the application site occupies an elevated position in relation to the land to the south. The proposed dwelling is a single-storey crescent-shaped dwelling, and it would be set on the central hillock on the southern side of the existing farmyard at the northern end of the site. It would be orientated to allow views across the landscape to the south. In terms of the planning considerations, the starting point for decision making is the adopted development plan, and specifically policies SP1 and SP2, which relate to the general location of development, the settlement hierarchy and the distribution of new housing. As previously stated, the development site is located within the open countryside. The development does not represent one of the specific circumstances referred to in local policies and is therefore contrary to the local policies SP1 and SP2, and this weighs against the proposal. The adopted development plan does not provide policy support for isolated dwellings of exceptional design quality in the open countryside. However, the application does not seek to justify the proposal against policies SP1 and SP2 of the development plan. The application seeks support from within paragraph 79E of the MPPF, which is a material consideration in the decision-making process. Paragraph 79E requires that the isolated dwelling is truly outstanding or innovative and would help to raise the standard of design in rural areas, and that it would significantly enhance its immediate setting and be sensitive to the defining characteristics of the local area. As explained in the report, it is considered that the site meets the first test of being considered isolated. It is within the open countryside and is not part of a cohesive or established settlement. In terms of the design of the dwelling, there are a series of artist impressions and visualisations provided on page 109 of the agenda. The bar set by paragraph 79E of the MPPF is a high one, notwithstanding the site's location within the nationally designated landscape and setting of a national park. It is acknowledged that concerns have been raised about a precedent being set. Ultimately, applications are determined on their merits on a case-by-case basis, and by definition, paragraph 79 dwellings are the exception rather than the rule. The development site is a plateau within the rolling landscape with extensive views to the south. The design is considered to be responsive to the contours of the land, and the sweeping crescent shape allows this single-storey building to nestle in the hillside. The design, and particularly the textures and density of the materials, take account of the characteristics and history of the local area and make sensitive reference to the surroundings and the environment. The truly outstanding design of the dwelling in terms of siting, form, scale and materiality is of the standard required by paragraph 79E. The design approach reflects the high standards of architecture, and it is considered that the development would help to raise standards of design more generally in rural areas. The applicant's design team have sought a solution to the challenges set by this site and its sensitivities, taking account of comments of the independent design review panel. The outcome is a development that would significantly enhance its immediate setting and be sensitive to the defining characteristics of the local area to meet the relevant tests set out in national policy. In conclusion, it is considered that the design of the proposed development represents exceptional quality within the definition of paragraph 79E of the NPPF, and the development would conserve and enhance the landscape and scenic beauty of the AONB without detriment to the setting of the national park, in compliance with paragraph 172 of the NPPF. The development would not result in an adverse impact in terms of local amenity, biodiversity or highway safety. It is also relevant to note that there is local support for the application from local residents and also the parish council. In these circumstances, it is considered that the exceptional quality of design and compliance with paragraph 79E of the NPPF outweighs the disbenefits of departing from the development plan policies in relation to the location of new housing development. It is therefore recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to the 21 conditions as listed in the planning report.
Thank you very much, Alan. We do have two speakers. They should each have 3 minutes to present their case. So I'll go first to Mrs. Jury. Are you with us, Mrs. Jury?
Caroline, we always have the speaker, the applicant and agent last.
Do we?
Yeah, it's the objector in this instance who would speak first.
Oh, right. And the objector is Mr. Glenham?
Glenham, I think representative of a local resident or resident.
Right, okay. Thank you. Mr. Glenham, sorry.
No problems, Chair. Good evening. Can you hear me
Yes,
clearly?
thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address committee on behalf of my clients, Mr. and Mrs. Hart of Snake Villa, which is in close proximity to the application site. As officers have confirmed, the application before you seeks planning permission for a residential dwelling within the Hoardian Hills area of outstanding natural beauty, and also within close proximity to the North York Moors National Park boundary. Both AONBs and national parks have the highest status of protection, and national policy sets a very high bar which must be passed before our applications can be approved, with great weight being given to conserving and enhancing the landscape and scenic beauty of such areas. In addition, proposals for isolated new dwellings can only be approved if the design is of an exceptional quality, and by this, the design has to be truly outstanding or innovative, as your officers have pointed out, and they would also have to significantly enhance its immediate setting and be sensitive to the defining characteristics of the local area. As officers have pointed out, this proposal seeks permission for a new dwelling in an elevated position to alter the existing building and create a new access track and large parking area on what is currently an undeveloped parcel of land, save for an existing agricultural building. In combination, should this application be approved, with an application previously approved by members referenced 18/01126/MFUL, and that is for a 7-bedroom dwelling, this and the already approved development would have a significant impact on the character and appearance of Ampleforth and would extend the developed nature into the open countryside. Such concerns have been raised by both the AONB manager and the North York Moors National Park Authority over this and other changes, with the National Park Authority stating that the application submission does not provide sufficient levels of landscape improvements or enhancements to justify a new dwelling in the countryside. The National Park Authority is concerned over the sporadic residential development and increased domestic activity in the open countryside, all of which would have a detrimental impact on the character of and setting of and important views into the national park. The AONB manager makes it very clear that the proposal would fail to significantly enhance the immediate setting, as evidenced by the applicant's own landscape and visual impact assessment, which merely states the proposal would maintain and improve landscape quality. This is a far cry from the policy requirement, which requires a significant enhancement to the immediate setting, a view my clients can concur with. There is also concern regarding light pollution from the dwelling and curtilage as a whole. And whilst officers consider conditions to be acceptable to deal with this aspect, it's our view that one of the key characteristics of the AONB is its nocturnal character, as set out in policy SB 13 of the local plan. This is a matter which requires a detailed assessment as part of the principle of development. It's a key consideration as to whether or not the proposal would significantly enhance its immediate setting and be sensitive to the defining characteristics. Again, this is a view shared by the manager. In conclusion, we concur with the consultee responses from the AONB manager and National Park Authority that the proposal would not significantly enhance its immediate setting. In contrast, it would have a significant adverse impact on the character and appearance of the AONB and setting of the North York Moors National Park. I would therefore request that the application is refused. And Chair, as just one point of clarification, the comments from the Parish Council, they simply stated that they did not support they did not wish to object to the proposal, but they did raise concerns over the proposal. So, if officers can clarify that they did not support the application, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Jury, you have the right to make your representation. You have 3 minutes. Are you there, Mrs. Jury?
I'm here. I'm her husband.
All right, okay, Mr. Jury.
Actually, we have the same thing to say. It was just that because I'm travelling at the moment. It was in case I couldn't contact you that she would speak for us. But if it's all right for me to speak,
yeah,
it amounts to the same thing.
That's fine. That's fine, Mr. Jury. You've got 3 minutes, sir.
Okay. Well, good evening to everyone. I'd like to thank the team of professionals that's worked on our behalf and the planning office and the planning committee for the time, consideration and work that has culminated in this meeting. When we first approached Rick Blenkarn, our architect, and his team about the possibility of building a modest family home on land we owned at Ampleforth, we had perhaps not anticipated the full extent of the work required to get to this point. Fortunately, Rick was fully aware of the onerous requirements for achieving recommendation for planning approval under paragraph 79. And so at the start, he advised us it would be a lengthy, demanding and financially risky process. It was during the independent design review conducted by the Yorkshire Design Review panel that we realised the scope and depth of the considerations to be taken into account and the professional expertise that was necessary to achieve our goal. Now, more than 2 years after commencing the project, having crossed numerous hurdles and already invested several tens of thousands of pounds, we're fully committed to seeing it completed. I will not attempt to address the concerns of those who have raised objections to our application, as I am not qualified to do so, and I would not do justice to the planning professionals who have already taken those concerns into account before arriving at their recommendation for planning approval. Meanwhile, I would like to thank the many supporters who far outnumber the objectors and recognise the value of the project. However, I'd like to remind the committee that we have lived in Ryedale since 2002, and I grew up around the corner in Hambleton. Indeed, I can trace my family roots to Helperthorpe in Ryedale's Great Wold Valley and Osmotherley on Hambleton's North York Moors, Western Fringe, and that goes back more than 200 years, probably more. Meanwhile, my wife has roots in Scarborough and our children have all been born and schooled in the area. We bought the land at Knoll Hill because we were not only happy to commit ourselves to looking after it, but also saw an opportunity to improve its condition and to enhance its obvious attractions. To those who are concerned about the effects of change in the fabric of the buildings or the landscape, I would suggest that as a family that is rooted here and wants to remain here, we share their appreciation for the historic rural nature of the area and we wish to maintain it. We fully recognise the special beauty of our area and the quality of our environment, and we seek not to detract from it, but to supplement it in some very small way that reflects progress and the continuation of life for the families that live and work here. And that concludes what I have to say. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Right, we've heard from the speakers this evening. I don't believe there are any other speakers for this item. Gary, do you want to confirm that for me?
No other speakers, Chairman. I think the first speaker did request clarification of the parish council position.
Yes, he did.
Which is very, very brief on page 145 of the agenda. Which is a very brief response saying Ampleforth Parish Council do not object to the planning application 20-00626 FUL, but are concerned about new residential development in the AONB. So unless Alan's had any further comments that are additional to that, that is the extent of the Parish Council response, which is one of not objecting. Reference has been made to the adjacent site in the presentations and in the documentation. Members will probably recall that I think on that occasion the Parish Council did object to that particular proposal, but they're not objecting to this application.
Thanks, Gary. Did we have any photographs for members to look at, I wonder?
Well, I think there are, Chairman, and I think Alan would wish Paul to put those on the screen so he can describe the site and the locations of buildings.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I think the next slide, if you could move along to that one, please. Thanks, Paul. Yes, this slide shows an aerial photo with the application site highlighted. You can just see centrally within that photo the roof of the agricultural buildings, which are due to be converted as part of this application. And to the west of that building, you can just make out a farmyard. The northern side of the highway, Jerry Carr Bank, is the national park, and on Westwood Lane there are a couple of residential properties where there are objections have been raised. And then on the far right hand side of that aerial photo, you can just see the edge of the settlement of Ampleforth, so that the public highway, as it leaves the village heading west, it raises up Jerry Carr Bank, and then it bends round to go past the application site, and the access road is where you can see the farmyard. The main access road is off the highway in that position. If we can move on to the next slide, please, Paul. Thank you. Okay, so this is taken on the northern side of the road, facing southward towards the application site, and this is the access that I just mentioned. This is the access, the main access at the moment into the farmyard, which would be the primary access to serve the dwelling. If you could just move on to the next slide, please. This photo is taken facing west from the access gate, facing across the landscape. You can just see the roadside hedge on the side of that photo. Next slide, please, Paul. And then just panning round towards the south, this is sort of facing towards where the dwelling would be constructed on the side of the knoll, and you can just sort of get an idea of the views that are available across the landscape in that direction. Next slide, please, Paul. This area is sort of facing towards where the rear of the building would be, the sort of parking and turning areas. I'd like to move on to the next one, please, Paul. And then panning round, this shows the part of the agricultural buildings. The building nearest on this photo is the building which is due to be demolished. Next slide, please, Paul. And this is taken facing roughly northeast from within the site. The building on the small building on the left would be demolished, and the remainder of the building would be converted as part of the works, but that building would be an ancillary use to serve the small holding and the dwelling. If you can move on to the next one, please, Paul. Again, this is a closer up of the knoll and the hillside where the dwelling would be constructed, facing southward across the landscape. Just move on to the next, please, Paul. And again, panning round towards the west, you can see the quite sort of dense, mature roadside hedge that provides screening along the northern boundary of the site. Next slide, please, Paul. This photo is taken to the east of the agricultural building and where the dwelling would be constructed. This is facing back towards the village, and you can see the properties that are in the background there. They're the nearest properties to the northeast, as referred to in the report. Next slide, please, Paul. And then this is turned around facing west, and you can just see this is the knoll, and you can actually see the change in levels here, because beyond, you can see the top of a fence there. Beyond that is where the dwelling would be constructed, and it from views from the east looking west would be largely screened by the landform, so the dwelling it wouldn't be visible as you leave Ampleforth from the public highway travelling west. Next slide, please, Paul. Again, this is taken to on the eastern side of the application site, facing towards agricultural buildings, and again it just shows the change in level of the land. You can just see the upper parts of the roof of that building there. Again, it just demonstrates that the landform would largely screen the dwelling from this side. Next slide, please. And again, just facing north towards agricultural buildings, you can see the change in levels again there. And also to note, in the background, you can see one of the properties on Westwood Lane, which was shown on the aerial photo, approximately 175 metres north of the application site. Next slide, please, Paul. And this is actually the second access point as shown on the plans. This is on the eastern side of the application site. This would be used as an access for to serve the small holding. So it would be mainly for any sort of livestock movements. It wouldn't be the main access to serve the dwelling. Next slide, if there is one, please, Paul. Yep, so this one is, again, on the left-hand side there, you can just see the hill as the land rises up, is where the dwelling would be constructed. And this is just to give an idea of the viewpoints that would be gained from the dwelling. Next slide, please, Paul. And then I believe this is the last slide, again, just facing back towards that hillside. This is facing towards where the dwelling would be constructed. Okay, I think that's probably it, Paul, but if there is any other slides, yep. Okay, so that concludes the slides for that particular item.
Thank you, Alan. I will open it up for questions. The local member would be Councillor Bailey, who's not with us. It is in my division, but I would like to hear from other members first. So, with fingers crossed, Councillor Andrews, are you still with us in the meeting, and do you have any questions?
Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, I can hear you, Paul.
Oh, thank God for that. Yeah. Can I just ask a couple of questions? First of all, the materials on the south side. That is the side which faces downhill. Is that concrete or is it stone? And the second thing is, can the property be seen from the down? You know, if you look up the slope, can the property be seen from the public highway or from the public bridleways or footpaths?
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. In terms of the first question, if it's the southern facing elevation of the dwelling, if you look on page 109 of the agenda, there's some artist impressions. So that side of the building, this would be a largely glazed side that would allow the occupants to take advantage of the views across the landscape, but the screens are lattice woven lightweight timber screens, and this is in part to it's obviously in terms of the actual appearance of the building, but it also would function in terms of reducing reflection off the glass, and it would also reduce light pollution during the night and evening. And there is a condition that
the structure itself is concrete, is it? It's glazed within concrete frames. Is that correct?
I'm unsure in terms of the detail provided shows it as largely glazed. I'm not aware of there being any visible concrete along that elevation. It's the northern side.
There's no concrete in it.
Forgive me, sir. It's now with committee. You're not allowed to add anything. Forgive me.
So it's the northern elevation on the inner side of the building, where the walls would be dry stone walls, but yes, the southern side would be largely glazed. And then in terms of the second part of the question, the public highway, the building would be screened from Jerry Carr Bank by existing landscaping, although there are, as noted in the report, there are a number of public rights of way in the area, and views over a distance would be achievable, but there would not be any close-up views of the application site.
Thank you.
Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got no questions specific to this application. I've got various questions that might come up that I will raise as part of a debate. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cleary. Councillor Graham. Councillor Graham, are you still with us? And is your microphone?
Yes, I am.
Thank
Can
you.
hear me?
Sorry.
Yes, no questions. Thank
you. Councillor Hope. Councillor Hope, your microphone's not on. Okay, Councillor Hope may or may not be with us.
Have you got me now?
Yes, I've got you now, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, no questions.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
No questions at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie.
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Potter.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The only mention I could see in the report of surface and foul water drainage was in the conditions. So I'm presuming that there's probably no mains drainage here. So can you just confirm that this would be pretty much septic tank and soakaways?
Yes, Councillor Potter, I understand that to be the case. Plus, as you say, that there are conditions to deal with the drainage as a reserve matter.
Right, thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Ryby.
Yes, could you clarify with me that the area is a non-development area but is being developed for this particular residence, or is it kind of okay to build residences in that sort of area anyway?
Do you understand what I'm saying?
In terms of the status of the site, it's outside of development limits. It's within the open countryside. So in terms of the development plan policies, which dictate the settlement hierarchy and the general location of housing development, their policies SP1 and SP2. But in this case, the application is a departure from the development plan. So the applicant is relying on other material considerations which they believe are in favour of their application, which in this case is the National Planning Policy Framework, and specifically paragraph 79E, which allows for, if the criteria is considered to be met, it allows for isolated dwellings in the open countryside where they are considered to be of an exceptional design quality.
Okay, so does that mean if it's grand enough, then it's okay, but if it's not grand enough, question mark?
Yes, in terms of national policy, it is it's the sort of the part of the policy which deals with country houses, country large houses, and it does it's the design quality that that is the judgment here, and that's what's weighed against the departure from the local plan policies, which determine where housing should go. In this case, it is depends on the quality of the design as informed by the design review panel approach, which has happened in this case.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Councillor Windress.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I couldn't find it in here quickly looking through. Would there be a lot of hedgerow removed for the access?
I couldn't know. That's a very good question.
Thank you, Councillor Windress. The access would need to be widened, the existing access that serves the farmyard as shown in the photos, but it wouldn't result in a significant loss of hedgerow. There is additional hedgerow also being planted in the wider site to follow historical field boundaries, but the existing hedge either side of the access point would be retained as part of the development.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe. Alan, I wondered if you could just answer a question for me. The southern elevation of this property appears to be in screened by some kind of lattice work. What I can't decide from the artist's impression is what colour that lattice work will be and whether it will blend significantly into the hillside for it to be not noticeable from the other side of the valley. Do you have any indication of what the material colour will be and how well it will assimilate into the countryside?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the detail provided, in addition to the artist's impression on page 110, there is a materials palette in terms of examples of the type of timber lattice screens that are being looked at in this case. It's my understanding it would still be a natural timber colour. The actual final materials would be, and colour finishes would be controlled by condition. But yes, it's on page 110 that gives an example of those types of screens.
Yeah, just as by way of a supplementary, Alan, I've seen the examples. It still doesn't give me a steer as to what the outside of this building is really going to look like if we give it permission to go ahead. We've just got examples.
Yes, those examples, as I say, it's my understanding it's not a painted screen. It would be a natural timber finish, but yes, we would have to control it by condition in terms of the final colour or stain of that wood.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you. Right, I'm going to open it up for debate. I'll open it up to Councillor Andrews. If you can hear me, Councillor Andrews, and you want to join the debate, please do.
I can hear you, Chair. This proposed building is contrary to the local plan. I might be prepared to waive that if I thought the design of the building was in a more conventional as well as an enhanced character. But in my view, it seems that this is not within the conventional vernacular. It's as it is surrounded in glass. It's going to reflect a lot of light, and that's not going to be in keeping with the area. I'm sure it's an excellent building, excellently designed, but I think it's really not appropriate to this part of the countryside. I would, if I have to make a choice between our officers' views and the views of the National Moor, the North Yorkshire Moor National Parks officer, or the AONB manager, I think I have to accept their views, and so therefore, Chair, I cannot support this application.
Thanks, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Difficult one, this. The questions that I alluded to at question time are the question mark on how we apply subjective appraisals to this. I'm going to start out by saying I think, in contrast to Councillor Andrews, I think this design is fantastic, and I'm a very traditional type of chap. I think having been involved in development and building in the past, there comes a time when vernacular becomes a pastiche. I've been accused of that, so I'm happy to use this as an example in the other way. I do think the design is fantastic, and I hope I'm not going too far by saying it's something that we've come to expect from the architects involved in this outstanding design. However, my worry and the question mark is how Para 9 and the design fits in with this individual location. As a chartered surveyor, rural practice surveyor, I'm embarrassed to say I can't actually, even with the excellent report that we've just seen, and knowing the area quite well, I can't quite picture it, and I would actually prefer to have a visit to actually look at the plans on site from a number of viewpoints just to see how it fits in. Therefore, I would propose we defer for a site visit. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Councillor Graham. Councillor Graham, you're on mute.
Is that better?
That's better, thank you.
Thank you. I would just absolutely agree with Councillor Cleary in what he's just said. I can't imagine this, largely because I don't know that area terribly well. But if it's where I think it is, and on, areas that are to do with the National Park and AONB and so forth, I would have to see something much more concrete than these, mocked up pictures, as it were. I couldn't decide one way or the other at the moment, and I think that, like Councillor Cleary, I would like to see something solid in order to make my mind up.
Thanks, Sue. Councillor Hope. Councillor Hope, you're on mute. Okay, I'll come back to Councillor Hope. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I must say, Michael put that very eloquently. Probably not as eloquently. Well, I'm not going to be as eloquent as Michael in his description of it. I do like the design. I think it's a good design. I think you're right. I'm not sure how it sits within the field, within the hill. It's almost like the contours go opposite to each other in the shape of the hill. If I remember rightly, this is near to the one we approved last year against recommendation from the committee, and that design was much more in keeping with the contours. If I remember rightly, it had a green roof and everything else. So I would second a site visit on this one, to be honest. It's not quite sitting right, but it's a fantastic design. But I'm just not sure about it at the moment. So I would second the site visit.
Thanks, Councillor Mason. Councillor Mackenzie.
Yes, Chair. It should come as no surprise if this is the sort of development that I love. I think it is. The development is of excellent design quality. It's, in my opinion, the future. It's the type of development I think we should support, and I would be happy to support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Potter.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Firstly, can I congratulate Alan on what I think is a particularly excellent and well-considered report. On a slight negative, I'm a little concerned about cumulative impact, but that's only on the basis that we approved one absolutely next door only last year, was it, or maybe the year before, which is quite unusual to get two very progressive designs together in such a small area. And we don't want them to be 10 a penny, but next door to each other indeed. I'm well aware that paragraph 79 is very much a subjective judgment, but I have to agree that I really like these sort of progressive designs. I do know the area, I know exactly where it is, and I do believe that it fits very well into the hillside. And I can't believe that, other than maybe a bit of reflective light, I can't see it being really visible or intrusive in any way. As I said, I do like the innovative design and the sensitive use of materials, the high eco credentials, and really, I mean, I would quite happily support a site visit, but also I'm quite happy to move approval of this. Yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ryedale.
I have my reservations on my reasons being, you get development in non-development areas. I suppose a site meeting to perhaps have an opportunity to change my mind. Without a site visit, I would be against it.
Thank you. Councillor Windress.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, I think I could support this. It's not exactly my cup of tea, but I mean, everyone to their own, and eco-friendly. If it fits in well in the area, I can't see a problem with it, and I would second approval if it came to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Windress. Councillor Hope, are you there? Can you join us? Otherwise, I'm afraid. Right.
It's still showing us on mute, Chairman.
Yeah. Eric, are you there? And if you are and you want to comment, do you want to unmute yourself?
Something's happening, I think.
Not once for yes, twice for no.
Yeah, it's like a seance.
Right, Eric, while you try and unmute yourself, and when you do and you're ready and you can hear me and you want to interrupt me, that's fine. I haven't made any comments in this debate so far, and whilst we don't have the local member here, it is in my division. And I'm going to be honest with members, I have some deep reservations about this. I have a deep reservation about development of this kind within the AONB and adjacent to the National Park.
Yeah.
Eric, you've joined us. Do come on in.
Yeah, thank you. I'm having horrendous laptop problems. I know the area quite well, and as Michael said, it's, I think they use the word fantastic design. It is. I wonder what happened years and years ago when Castle Howard was first muted, and everybody said, oh, don't want a spot like that. Look at them now. But I still would like a site visit, and I think that will make my mind up completely. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. As I was saying, I do have some deep reservations. I had deep reservations about the previous application that was approved last year for the bottom of Knoll Hill, and I do have deep reservations about this one as well. And I'm prepared. I'm open to being convinced that this will sit and assimilate into the countryside. So I'm going to support my colleagues' request for a site visit. So on the basis that it's been moved and seconded for a site visit, can I go down the list and say, we're going to take this first, members, and I'm going to ask you to vote for or against a site visit. So can I come first to you, Councillor Andrews?
I would vote in favour of a site visit, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Graham?
For.
I'm for. Councillor Hope?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mason?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Potter?
Bit of a ride out, but I'll go for.
Councillor Ryby?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Windress?
I'll go for as well, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. That's a unanimous vote, members, for a site visit, and we'll deal with this matter at the end of the meeting. Moving on to item 11 on page 146. You have to bear with me while I open it up on my iPad because it's gone off.
Mike, you'll have to put your bike in the car like you did last time.
Oh, scurrilous suggestion.
Right, application 20/00628, Hutton Zambo, the erection of a single-storey rear extension to form additional living accommodation, 4-bay garage and a stable. And I think this is Ellie again to present.
Actually, Chairman, I think this one delegated upwards because at one point, Ellie was on holiday and I ended up going to the site and things moved on. So I've been prevailed upon to actually deal with the application. There are no updates, Chairman, but actually I thought it probably just would be easiest to go to the presentation if we can on this particular item, and then I can refer the photos to the plans that we have on page 153 onwards. So that's lovely, thank you. So you can just go to the that's it. This is an aerial photograph of the location of the site, and if members can look at page 153 on the agenda papers, you'll see that this particular property is located towards the sort of southern end of the village at Low Hutton on rising ground, and just to the south of the area where the main village green is as you head up the hill. And part of the property currently is where the village shop and post office is or was. In fact, the shop was still open last time I went there, so I think the shop still is there. The shop's here and the attached residence is there. This is the application site in this area here. And on that aerial photograph, you can see the immediately adjacent property which is the residence of the objector. The main dwelling there is set back, but you can see that adjacent to that northern boundary is a treble garage building, which is set slightly forward, and to the rear of that garage and to the side of the house is a relatively modern extension, which was described as an orangery, and you'll see photographs of that in a moment, which is currently, for at the time of my visit anyway, being used as a sort of conservatory come internal gymnasium to the house. So that's located on slightly lower ground to the property. At the rear of the main house and the village shop, you can see a long run of outbuildings which are adjacent to that northern boundary, a combination of existing buildings, which again you'll see the photographs of, and again to the rear of that is a substantial tree which is actually located on the adjacent property but close to the boundary. So if you can move to the next slide, please. So this is taken at the back of the frontage property behind the shop, looking to the northern boundary, and you can see all the way along that boundary, which is a run of about 26 metres, is a somewhat unattractive flat roofed extension linked to a more traditional outbuilding with the pitch tiled roof, and then beyond that is a blockwork building which is a combination of a sort of, I'll call it a garage, although it's hardly deep enough, and then a blockwork building which looks as though in the past it's even been used for pig keeping. There were internal troughs and various things on that inside that building. So if you can go to the next slide, please. And this is just step back a little bit further so you can see that range of buildings again. The next slide. This is from the further down the rear garden, looking towards the back of the frontage property. And again, you can see the nature of these blockwork outbuildings, all of which would be demolished and replaced with the proposed extension. It's sort of quite helpful because you can see that the building, which has obviously been there for some time, actually is slightly underneath the spread of the tree, but clear of it. Next slide, please. And this is a view further from down the boundary. So again, you can see how tight the buildings are to the boundary, but have been there for some considerable time. The back of the main house you can see, and the single-storey lower profile building with the orange clay pantile roof is the shop area. If you can go to the next slide, please. This is a view taken from the adjacent property, and this is the orangery cum gymnasium building, as we'll describe it, facing towards their southern boundary, which is the northern boundary of the application site. As you can see, the ground levels here are about a metre lower than current, and at that view there you can see the boundary the wall, which is the boundary wall, which is the back wall of that blockwork building on the application site. It's around 2.2 metres high at that point. Next slide, please. And this is a view from the higher level, so you're standing at ground level at the tree. You can just slightly off picture there is you can just see the trunk of the tree in question, and you've stepped up about a metre or so there. So it gives you an idea of the floor levels of the adjacent building. In the background, you can see the treble garage, the roof of the treble garage to the front and side of the neighbouring dwelling. The next slide, please. And this is just standing in front of that tree, so you get more of an idea of the change in levels. So you can see the profile of the roof of the existing dwelling in the background, and the continuation of the single-storey buildings all the way along the northern boundary of the site. So the eaves level is pretty much the same as what we're looking at there. Obviously, the height of the roof, because it's got an asymmetric tiled roof on the top, is a little higher. And I think that may be the last photograph. Yes. So nothing really to add to the report, Chairman. I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't think we've got any speakers on this particular application.
No, we haven't, Gary. I was just checking my list. I don't think we've got any speakers on this one. Right, so I will open it up to questions from members. This is in the territory of Councillor Cleary and then Councillor Graham, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thanks, Gary. Some good photographs. I wonder if we could, is there any chance we can go to the photograph that was taken from the adjacent property, looking along the wall of the orangery and showing the existing building, the existing blockwork building. And then if you can guide us, Gary, keep going, keep going. That's the one. Thank you. Whoa, back. That's the one. If you can guide us. So we're looking from the adjacent property immediately at the application property, and we're looking at that blockwork building, the existing building. And then if members can maybe look at the plan of the proposal on page 157, that shows the new building. And I'm just wondering what the ridge height or the top of the roof height is. That appears to be, if not exactly, just a little lower than the eaves height of the main house on the application site. I wonder if maybe, Gary, you could guide us as to how much higher, looking at that existing blockwork building, how much higher the proposal is.
Orient yourself and guide you through the plans that you have on your agenda. What you have is a proposal that's been amended during the processing of the application. Okay, so on page 156 and 157 and 158 are the plans as they were originally submitted. Okay, and they projected further down the garden than they now are shown on plans on page 159, 160 and 161. So the plan originally had an additional bay on the rear of it, which took the outbuilding, the extension nearer to the tree, the trunk of which you can see in the background there.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, the outbuilding, attached outbuilding that you're looking at there, is about 2.2 metres at eaves, and it's pretty much the same in the extension at the eaves. It projects no further rearwards towards the tree than the current building, and subject to agreeing details of the construction of a foundation, we have no objection to any impact on the tree. So the trees existed with the building, and the new building should be able to be constructed in a way that doesn't have a detriment to the tree. Okay, so that was an issue for us. If you're able to then look at the drawings on page 160, Chairman, if that's possible, just to answer Councillor Cleary's question. There are two, effectively, the extension needs to be looked at in almost as if it's in two parts. So the bit that's nearest to the house is narrower and lower. And with that in mind, it has a high point, as described in the report, of about 4.2 metres, where the existing is 2.5. Okay. At the highest point, then, if one's looking again on page 160, because the rear elevation is screened by the larger bit, the taller bit, which is wider, that extends to around 4.5 metres. But that is, at that point, the highest point of the roof, which is an asymmetric form, is about 4.5 metres from the boundary, so further away. I would point out that if we're able to look at the next picture, if Paul can move on to the next picture. Yes, sorry, you moved too quickly there, Paul. Back one. No, sorry, keep going forward, Paul. No, you're going the wrong way. That's it, keep going. Next one. That's it. If you can see that gap from the flank wall of this extension to the house, which was built in around 2015, 2016, there's a further gap of between 4.7 and 5 metres. So the difference between the highest point of the extension and that flank wall is about 9.5 metres of that order. The other thing to point out is that the orangery extension, as it was described at the time, has fenestration on all sides. So it's rearward and sideways. Does that have any assistance, Councillor Cleary?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Yeah, I think so. I think that deals with the question. Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Andrews.
No questions. Oh, sorry. Yes, there is one. There is one question, and that is in the report. You say as a whole, the length of the proposed extension will sit on a footprint which is the same length as the current set of buildings in this position on the site. How would the current proposals compare in regard to width with what are at present on the site?
That's set out in the report, Chairman. The rear section, for example, is widened to around about 7 metres. That's partly because it's proposed to be for garaging of cars of a current size. So it's wider, but to try and address and keep the impact down on the neighbouring property, you'll see that if you go onto page 160 and look at the top picture, you'll see that there's an asymmetric view of the rear. So the eaves is pretty much as it is now, yeah, but the apex slopes away from that boundary. What it's hard to show on that elevation, but the second drawing at the top of those three shows it, is the lower profile of the bit that's nearest to the back of the house, which is the linking bit, which is a little lower to again lessen the impact on the adjacent property.
Yeah, I understand. Can I just, I mean, how much wider is it? Are the buildings from the existing buildings? Are we talking about 7 metres, or are we talking lots of metres?
No, it's not that much wider. I mean, I think if you're doing a comparison, I'm trying to look for the drawing. It's dotted on it, but I would guess it's on page 161. It shows in a very pale dotted form the profile of the existing buildings. I'm not sure if you can see that, Councillor Andrews. In fact, the proposed extension has been moved slightly away from the boundary. It's further away than what the original existing buildings actually are, to absolutely ensure that there's no encroachment, for example. But I would say you're looking in the order of 2 to 2.5 metres, depending on which point of the building you measure it.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hope.
No questions, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
No questions.
Councillor Mackenzie.
No questions, thank you.
Councillor Potter.
Yes, please, Chair. Could I ask who is our current tree and landscape officer? But as well as that, there's reference to the objector having an arboricultural report. And in that, is there any detail of the degree of harm to the lime tree? Because all it says is that it says there could be harm, but I mean, you've only got to cut the odd root and there will be some harm. So what was the degree?
Councillor Potter, I haven't got the detail of the document in front of me. I did look at it this afternoon on our website, and it's a document produced by a professional person that's been submitted that speculates that there would be impact or could be impacts on the tree. And you can see this tree from within the street, behind the back of the house, for example, within the building. So it's clearly an issue that we've given careful consideration to. Our tree and landscape officer, Matthew Stubbins, has been with us a few months now, has been asked to look at this site, has looked at the site, has looked at the proposal. And to some extent, the tree, which I don't think, although it's quite a sizable tree, it's not particularly old tree, has existed with the buildings. So it's grown, with the buildings, probably of a contemporaneous age to the rather dilapidated buildings that already exist there. So there's a degree of it's grown with what's there. The issue for our tree and landscape officer was not that this building might or might not have an impact on the tree, but how it's done. This building is already partly within the spread of the tree, so it has the potential to have impact in terms of some impact on the roots, but it's not the whole tree. Whereas, as originally submitted, the building went further and much closer to the trunk of the tree, even though it's on the opposite side of the boundary wall. So our tree and landscape officer has reviewed the information and effectively concluded that his response remains the same, and it's not a question of objecting to the development as such because of an immediate or a long-term impact on the tree, but how it's constructed, how the foundations are actually done. So that might involve hand digging, it might involve using air spades, it could be all sorts of things. So his reaction to that is that we would need, and it's put there, is a method statement for the trees protection and completion of the development on condition 6.
Lovely, thank you, Gary. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Ryby.
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Windress.
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a little like my colleague, just slightly worried about the impact on the tree. Bearing in mind the tree is actually next door's tree and not the applicant's tree. And it seems to me to be a significant tree, particularly if you can see it from the street scene at the front, because it's quite set back. So it must be a really good tree. I don't know what measures. Sorry, I'm just trying to work out what measures we could take to protect that tree.
Well, Chairman, if you look at page 156, it's quite a useful picture, because at that point you can see what was originally proposed.
Yeah.
And you can see in that position there that the trunk of the tree is, about a metre, maybe less than a metre north into the site, but clearly a tree with that spread will have a root structure that's covering both sides. As it was originally, what you can see on there in the dotted lines, which I hope is helpful for Councillor Andrews, is the outline and the profile of the existing buildings. Okay, the ones that would be demolished. And as originally submitted, you can see that the building as proposed projected a further good 3 metres beyond that flank wall. So under the spread of the tree, in terms of coming back to Councillor Potter's point, there was inevitably going to be a lot more happening going on, either in terms of foundations or floor levels or ground compression under the spread of the tree. And that our tree and landscape officer wasn't happy with. But if you then revert that back to the drawings on page, I'm trying to find the page number now.
159.
Page 159, yes. You can see, although the building is wider, it's no greater impact in terms of the impact under the spread of the tree, save for how the foundation of the new extension is built. Okay, so it's more a question of how it's done rather than the further impact on the tree as such. All I can say is he's a qualified tree and landscape officer. If he was worried about the tree, he'd say something about it, and well, he did. That's why we got the reduction of the extension. So in terms of impact on the tree, we're pretty confident that subject to getting the method of the protection and the foundation and construction, there really should be no direct impact from either construction or ground compression or storage of materials even, that would have an impact on the tree that would actually, threaten its existence.
Okay, thanks for that. Right, members, I'm going to open up the debate and I'm going to go back to Councillor Cleary and Councillor Graham as the local members. Do you want to kick this off first, Councillor Graham, since Councillor Cleary did it last time?
Yes, I've got no difficulties with this. I was concerned about the tree, but I think there's obviously things that we can do to protect that. Satisfactory. I also noticed that with the original plan, the town council had difficulty, and then that was on the 3rd of August. By the 11th of September, they were in support of the revised application, and I would say I would approve this.
Is that you moving approval, Sue?
Well, yeah, I'm happy to move approval, yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd be lying to the committee if I said I knew this area well. Hutton Sambo is not a place that many people, that anybody drives through or travels through, or in the case of Councillor Potter, cycles through. You have to go there. I have been there during the year to actually look at the neighbouring property who had an application which unfortunately didn't come to committee. I do have a problem with this, and I think, and I know Mr. Housen won't like me for this, but I think the rest of the committee should have a look at this on the ground, and therefore I would propose a site visit, deferment for a site visit, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Councillor Andrews, if you're with us, would you like to join the debate?
Yes, I am, Chair. I'm reasonably satisfied with this proposal. They pretty well follow much the same footprint as the buildings which are already on the site, and it's going to be an improvement of the look of the building. I would second approval.
Thank you. Councillor Hope.
Yes, I think a site visit would be a good idea.
Right. Okay, Councillor Mason.
I got the feet in both camps on this one. I think the application itself looks reasonably good, as Paul pointed out. But my only concern is actually the height next to the neighbour. I mean, I've been pretty sure the protection for the tree will be put in place accordingly by the officers, but I'm still not clear how much more imposing it's going to be for the neighbour there. And I think that was reflected in the parish council letter as well. I'm not going to second the site visit yet. I'm just going to listen and see if anyone else does at the moment.
Okay. Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It seems a perfectly reasonable application to me, and I would support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I see this as a replacement of a dilapidated and very ugly building on a very similar footprint. So I can't see that there's a great deal of impact, particularly from any public view. My major concern, as I've said before, is for the root protection zone of the tree. And although the neighbour had suggested a compromise, we have to decide what's in front of us. So I'm willing to believe that the tree officer's opinion on the foundations of the building can protect that root protection zone to a suitable degree. I'm also interested to know the renewables and water harvesting on the building, and it's interesting to me that individual applicants are increasingly incorporating this sort of stuff into their designs, and they clearly see this as both desirable and cost effective. And I see it as such a shame that the penny pinching and excessively profitable, should we say, major developers have yet to come to the similar view, and neither have the policymakers. But yes, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Potter. We may be straying into politics there, but I'll let that one go. Councillor Ryby.
I have nothing to debate. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Windress.
Yeah, I think I can support this, Madam Chairman. The fact that they've moved it further away from the tree as such for the revised bit of it, and with the Tree and Landscape Officer, if he's happy, I think we should be okay. Thank you.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded for approval. Councillor Cleary's asked for a site visit, and I would happily second that as a site visit, but I think it has been moved and seconded for approval before the site visit. So I think we have to go down and see what the members' votes are for the application as it stands. So can I start with you, Councillor Andrews?
Approved, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary?
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Graham?
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Hope?
We're voting for the, not for the site visit, are we?
No, because it was moved and seconded for approval, Eric, first.
Abstain then.
Councillor Mason?
I'm going to approve, actually.
Okay. Councillor Mackenzie?
Approval.
Thank you. Councillor Potter?
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Ryby?
Approved.
Thank you. Councillor Windress?
Approve.
Okay. Very reluctantly, I will approve this, but it is a very reluctant approval. I would have gone with my colleagues to have a site visit, but the overwhelming move is that it should be approved. So very reluctantly, I'll approve as well. Thank you, members. That is 3, 6, 8 votes for and 2 abstention. So it's approved. Thank you, members. Move on to item 17, which is on page 165. This is application number 20/00660/full. It is a formation of a new field access off the north side of Cornborough Road, Sheriff Hutton. Ellie, are you doing this, or is it going to be Gary?
It's me, Madam Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, this is a minor application for a small access track through a stretch of field boundary woodland off Cornborough Road to the west of Sheriff Hutton. The applicant owns the agricultural land and the woodland, which he planted about 20 years ago. The agricultural land beyond is used to grow arable produce. The application has been made to assist the management and healthy growth of the woodland as it matures in the most efficient way and without disruption to the agricultural activity on the rest of the land. Members will note from the report that there is an objection from the parish council and a neighbour raising issues with highway safety, the loss of trees, and concern that this might encourage further development in the field in the future. Madam Chairman, these issues are addressed in the report, and I should just confirm that the local highways officer has been consulted and has raised no objection to the proposal. There are no updates, and the recommendation is as outlined in the report. So if we could go to the presentation, please, Paul. If we could just go to the first, thank you. So this is an aerial image of the site to help members orientate themselves. The site is situated on the northern side of Cornborough Road, north of the solar farm. Members, you'll notice that the track is very narrow and it is positioned at the narrowest point of the woodland, so it minimises the amount of disruption to the woodland and is in a position which achieves maximum visibility in terms of the highway. Next image, please, Paul. This image was taken from the midpoint of the proposed access looking west along Cornborough Road. Next image, please, Paul. And then this is from the same position looking east along Cornborough Road. Next image, please, Paul. So this image was taken from within the woodland belt looking towards the highway. Members will see that there's 2 stakes in the ground which have been used to demarcate the width of the proposed track. Next image, please, Paul. This image was taken from the edge of the agricultural field looking through the woodland towards Cornborough Road. It gives members an indication that this is quite a short distance. As you can see, the boundary hedge that borders the highway through the trees in the middle of the photo. And the photo also illustrates that this is still quite a young woodland. And as the tree and landscape officer has pointed out, it will need management as it matures. Next image, please, Paul. And this final image, I think, is taken from within the woodland at the point where the gates are proposed to secure access, and that's approximately 11 metres back from the highway. So thank you, Madam Chairman. There are no more photos.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Thank you. Right. Questions.
Chairman.
Sorry, Gary.
So I got my hand up. But,
sorry, missed you. You weren't on screen.
Chairman, I just wanted to draw attention to the 2 letters in the late pages, just to make sure members had read them. There was a letter from a third party, who I think was one of the persons expressing concerns about the application. There was also a correspondence, which I think it was in the form of an email from the agent, Mr. Blencarn, and right. He, I think, had confirmed in effectively the first paragraph on page 5 of the late pages that the removal of the trees to facilitate the access, he thought it was around about 8 trees. So I think if you can, obviously they're quite young trees and sort of still growing and still need managing, but it was quite, I'm not sure how many 100 trees there are in there, Chairman, but the access point would result in the loss, he estimates, of around 8 of the trees at that point.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I'll open it up for questions for members. Thank you, Gary, for clarifying that for everybody. There's no local member. It is in my division, but I'm going to let my colleagues deliberate on this one first. So, Councillor Andrews.
No questions, Chair.
Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, excuse me for interrupting. Have we lost Councillor Hope entirely, because he's the local member?
Yeah, I was waiting my chance.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eric. You are the local member. Forgive me.
Quite
sorry,
all right.
I was thinking it was someone else. Sorry.
No, you're all right. No, I have no questions, and as long as the tree management's going to be looked after and done properly, I have no problems with it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cleary, for pointing that out. Councillor Graham.
No questions, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
I have no questions either, thank you, Madam Chairman.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Cleary. I bounced you out.
Nor do I, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Mackenzie.
No questions, thank you.
Councillor Potter.
No questions, thanks.
Councillor Ryedale.
No questions, thank you.
Councillor Windruss.
No questions, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll move it into debate. Eric, would you want to pick it up?
Yeah, I think this is going to be an advantage, even though quite a few people are saying no, it isn't. But we're only going to lose 8 trees and make a safer junction. Because when tractors and trailers are going down there, the trailers hung out on the road, and this is a deeper entrance. So I'm quite happy with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Eric. Councillor Andrews.
I have no problem with this at all, Chair. I will second approval.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I think all the relevant material planning conditions are met. I know in particular the highways have no problem. I would refer members to the report where it says wider issues, concern has been raised, etc. Naturally, we have to disregard that, and so we will disregard it for the moment. Although, obviously, in the forthcoming months, years, whatever, we'll note any applications with interest. I have no problem supporting this application.
Okay, Councillor Graham.
No questions.
We're in debate, Sue.
I'm so sorry. No, nothing to add to that.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Councillor Mason.
No points. I think it's fine.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mackenzie.
Just picking up on what Councillor Hope said, it seems to improve safety with the trailers, with it being a deeper access, so no problem supporting it.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Chair. There's always one troublemaker. It's usually me. On the surface, this looked very straightforward, but then thinking about it, I found it more and more perplexing, because what I'm looking at is a piece of woodland, and clearly from the aerial view of very much variable thickness. And I was thinking, in the proposal, it says it's proposed as a new entry point to assist the management of the woodland with minimal disruption to the woodland. So there's no other reason for it other than to access that woodland. And yet you've got a very short length of track where you can access the absolute minimum area of woodland, and the rest of the woodland, there is virtually no access to it. So I was thinking, well, if you started off from the existing track and you wanted to actually access, you would have to work your way in, and if you're thinning or whatever, I mean, if it was a major clearance of the trees, you would require very heavy machinery. If you're just thinning, then you just go in with a chainsaw and you thin out. And I was thinking, well, what's the problem with accessing, and what sort of equipment do you need other than to take those trees out, in which case you need various tracks and access routes all the way through the woodland. And it doesn't give you that. All it does is, if you think about how much access you've got into that woodland, you've got the absolute minimum access just in the immediate vicinity of that track. And it's got me completely perplexed. So unless there's some good reason or good excuse, I'm afraid I can't support it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Ryby.
I guess you experienced officers, members will be watching if there is the implication of further development. Otherwise, I have no problem.
Thank you, Councillor Ryby, but we're not allowed to consider what might be coming. We have to consider what's in front of us now.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Windress.
I'll be supporting it, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From the Chair, this short track that gets access to the woodland behind, I think, is important. When you've got woodland, it's important that it's managed and it's managed well. If by doing a short track, it means we lose the least amount of trees to get in there to do that job efficiently, then I suppose I'm quite satisfied that that's what should happen. So I think it's been moved and I think it's been seconded. So I will go down the members' lists and ask them for their votes, please. Councillor Andrews.
Approved, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary.
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Approved.
Thank you. From the Chair, I approve. Councillor Hope.
Approved.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Approve.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Approve.
Councillor Potter.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Ryby.
Approved.
Councillor Windress.
Approved, Madam Chairman.
Okay, that's 9 votes for and 1 against. That's approved. Thank you very much, members. Right. I'm going to make a slight departure from the agenda at this point because I was asked to put 2 things on the agenda under urgent business or any other business. So this is where I'm going to take this, and it's a request from Councillor Potter that we consider the 2 planning items from the recent P&R meeting. So that was agenda, I'm assuming this is the P&R agenda. It was agenda item 11, which is the white paper consultation on planning for the future, and agenda item 12, which is changes to the current planning system, which is from homes, communities and local government. Now, the second item, I believe, is time sensitive. Gary, am I getting this right? The second item is time sensitive and the responses need to be in by the 1st of October. And the first item, which is the white paper consultation, we have until the 29th of October to make responses. I believe Jill Thompson's already circulated information to members, and it's going to be very difficult to discuss this item from P&R and have responses to officers in the next 48 hours. I'm minded to suggest that if members feel very strongly that they should make those representations tomorrow to either Gary or Jill Thompson. Gary, do you want to come in here at any point?
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman, and I'm sure Jill will elaborate on anything I don't pick up. But the consultations that came out in early August, obviously the one that was heralded in the press was the planning white paper, planning for the future, and there's a 12-week consultation on what are some fairly radical changes to the planning system, and Jill detailed those in the report to P&R. I think the decision from P&R was that that in making that response, officers would consult with all members, and I think Jill has corresponded with all members, and I think given a date by which we could really do with responses back, and in that sense there is a little bit of a time to work with, because the response time for the consultation, which is a guillotine by government, anything after that time will not be considered, is the 29th of October, which is about 4 weeks away. At the same time, a separate consultation was produced by government on changes to the planning system, and as is often the case, wasn't trailed in the press or anything remotely like as much, and is on an 8-week consultation date, and the deadline is Thursday. And so both of those reports were still in fairly short order, went to P&R on the 24th of September. And I think it's fair to say that members at P&R in making responses to the second consultation, the shorter consultation, did request that those responses would be beefed up somewhat. And I think the officer has already circulated those responses as drafts to the chairman of Policy and Resources Committee. But as you say, quite rightly say, Chairman, we're 5 minutes to midnight on that. We have very little time left to do anything with it, and to fail to respond would be no response. So that's where we are. I'm not sure if Jill's got anything to add to that.
Jill, could you be on mute?
Caroline, while we're waiting for Jill, just to let you know, I've just emailed my copy of the response I sent to P&R last week. I think Jill has received that, but if you want to circulate that to the group, it's basically my thoughts on what the planning consultation response needs to be.
Okay, thanks for that, Steve.
Maybe 10.
Chairman, can you see and hear me?
I can hear you but can't see you, Jill, but that's fine.
Right, okay, I haven't got anything to add. I don't know what's going on with my laptop, but it's showing that I'm the other laptop's showing that I'm not muted, but clearly you can't hear me. No, there isn't anything to add. I mean, from our point of view, as soon as members can get any comments to us that we can weave into, particularly the second consultation, the first consultation on the white paper, the better. And I think I suggested in an email, if we could get those by the sort of the middle of the month, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
The middle of October.
Yeah. And the second item, which is really time sensitive, Jill, which is the current changes to the planning system, you would need that by tomorrow.
We would, that's right. But I think we got quite a sort of a loud and clear message that we needed to beef up some of the responses in that to the four main proposals. And I think Rachel is on with that. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Mike, are you happy to go away and consider this and make sure that you have responses with the officers by tomorrow, and then work on the first one, which is the white paper consultation? I don't know if there's time to bring that back to the next committee meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I appreciate when I made the request that it was going to be difficult with the timeframes involved.
Sorry, so very short notice.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah. It was all rather short notice, and particularly with the second consultation. Can I just make a request that if there have been sort of copies of updates already on that second consultation, can they be sent to us with some urgency tomorrow morning so that we can actually see any changes that have been made before we put in anything that we want to do ourselves? Because I feel that this is very important that the planning committee actually have the opportunity to comment on this consultation. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Gary, Jill, do you have anything to add to that? Have we got the beefed up version ready to go for members to see?
It's my understanding that we have, so we can distribute something tomorrow.
Thank you, Jill. And unfortunately, members, you will really have to turn this around. Do we have, or is there a suggested deadline for when you would want those comments, Jill?
Really by the end of tomorrow, because that second consultation needs to be submitted on Thursday, and there'll be an exercise we have to go through in entering everything into whatever system the response. It's not a question of just emailing something off. There'll be some sort of electronic system, which means we have to enter everything in manually.
Okay, so that's Thursday's job effectively.
It is, yes.
Yeah, thanks for that. Gary, have you got any other comments you wish to make?
No, not at this stage. We are where we are with this. You know, the government consultations are what they are, and you know, quite frankly, they don't give a hoot whether people could respond or not. So, if we need to, you know, these are guillotine times. You know, they don't give us any latitude on them.
No. No,
Chairman.
no. It's the whole thing for me is very disappointing.
Chair, say something,
Yes,
please.
yes, Councillor Andrews.
And that is, I mean, we have to go along. I think with what Policy and Resources have said, but I'm very unhappy about it. And I do think that if in future we have consultations on planning matters, that those consultations should be referred to the Planning Committee first. I mean, obviously, Policy and Resources are the committee which makes the decision on these consultations. But I do think that the planning, as a matter of general good practice, that the planning committee should be the first port of call for all these consultations. And if it can't be the first port of call because of timescales and so on, then at least the planning committee could consider these things simultaneously with Policy and Resources. And if necessary, the planning committee could be invited to Policy and Resources committee meetings where these things are discussed and be given the opportunity to speak. And it's just a point, because it does seem to me to be rather stupid that the people who are being asked to comment on these matters are people who aren't actually directly involved in planning, and I do think they should hear what the people who are involved in planning think before they finalise their views.
Thanks, Councillor Andrews. I appreciate your comments and they're taken on board. Councillor Mason, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I want to echo that, actually. I think Paul's right, because I think the significant changes of this consultation is going to impact on pretty much every policy in council at some level. And Policy and Resources, yeah, okay, but this is planning. We are planning. And we are the people that are on the front line of the planning, and this consultation is, well, you've seen my emails, is how I feel about it. Is a complete stitch up, but I think it's going to impact on so many different levels in the council if these proposals go through. And I think a better expert opinion, maybe that's the right thing to say, obviously led by the advice of the officers, would be most important. Into the Policy and Resources decision first.
Thank you.
Chairman, I think there is an issue here that officers, have limited control over, and obviously, as a council, we flip-flop between where policy and planning has been made. We started off with the strategy being P&R, and during that process, it changed to planning, and now back to P&R again. I mean, these are decisions for the council to make as to how and when it makes its policy decisions and what advices it takes from which committee. That's not for officers, really. That's for yourselves as elected members. But I think the particular difficulty we had here, partly COVID related, we've heard it already tonight, is that, we've got a committee process that we've only just re-emerged out of on the 2nd of September. The consultation was the 6th of August. Authorities around the land were still wrapping their heads around what it all meant, for the first 6 weeks. So there was no question of us being able to get anything sensible to a committee, irrespective of whether it was planning and P&R, until sort of last week and now. We're still having meetings with other authorities to sort of get a collective view on what it meant for us all. So we've had a guillotine over all of us really on this one. So it's been very difficult to have actually been able to choreograph what this meeting felt, to give it to a P&R that doesn't exist before the response is due.
Gary, from my point of view, I'm not sure members were at all critical of how the officers have handled it. I think this is just a general feeling that it would be appreciated if planning could at least be consulted on planning issues and those thoughts fed into P&R. It isn't a question, and it's not officers. It isn't officers that are in any way to blame, if you like, for the current situation that we're in. Mike, you've got your hand up. Do you want to come in and say anything further?
Yeah, could I just add a couple of points? The first being that I feel it's so disappointing that P&R took control of this when you've got people who are sitting on the committee that have never sat on planning, have got no experience of planning, and have no training on planning, and yet they took control of this. Now, that apart, again, I have absolutely no problem with what the officers have done, because with the COVID situation being serious in the first place and rising to be, again, a really serious concern, what on earth are we doing talking about changing the whole planning system at this time when both government and local councils should be, and certainly are, absolutely overwhelmed with far more important business? And my last point is that this is an issue, and I've got to agree here with Steve, it is an issue for the whole council and should and could have been brought to whole council, because it's an issue that impacts so many aspects of what we need to do as a council in terms of providing affordable, however you want to describe that, council housing, social housing, but it really has an impact on everybody. And I think it is just unbelievable that this is being dropped on us with ridiculously short timescales at this particular time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Just in response, Mike, I have to defend my colleagues on P&R, because I do know there are a number of them who have done planning training, who have previously been on planning. So it's not entirely true to say that there's nobody there with any experience. Councillor Mason.
I think Michael's got his hand up there.
Oh, sorry, Michael, I can't see you on my screen.
That's why I pressed the my hand is up button, but it's Teams, so it doesn't work anyway. Yeah, I, at the risk of repeating, there are a couple of things I wanted to say, but I think most people have said it, and I just wanted to back up what you'd said, what you'd come back on, Caroline, about Gary and his team. There's no criticism at all of our planning team. They're having to field some particularly crooked balls. I was going to say something, but it'd probably be too strong and wouldn't work. So I'll just agree with what everybody else has said.
Thanks, Michael. Steve, did you want to come back? Is your hand up for a reason?
Yeah, I mean, my only added point on this really is if anybody's got access to, I've been in this all weekend with the local government association, advisors down, and we've had our conference and everything else. But if anyone's got any access and wants any advice as councillors, is to contact your local government association and ask their advice on some of this, because this is probably the most significant thing. And for me, it's just will disempower councils in developing plans and all sorts of things. There isn't really necessarily a problem. I mean, there's. I think this is right. The LGA put out a thing saying there's 1 million homes that have got approval that are just not being built, and that's not down to planning. That's down to the developers not building. And that's the issue. The planning necessarily, there's a few problems maybe, there are times and that sort of thing, but it's not broken as much as what this consultation is intimating. This seems to me, for me, this is a developer's charter, and I think there's real implications on zoning and everything. That if you get a chance to, please put your information into the council officers, let them get your feelings known.
Okay. Steve, just to pick up on what you said, I did write to, I think it's James Jamieson, who is the chairman of the Local Government Association, and I have made my feelings felt on what is going on currently in planning, and he was in agreement with some of the points that I raised with him. So I have already been in communication with the chairman of the Local Government Association as a district councillor. Yeah, if anybody's got any more comments, let's have them now. Otherwise, please, if you want to be part of the response process, tomorrow for the second item, and by, I would have said, probably the 21st of October for the first item, because that will then give the officers time to act on any information you want to put in with regard to the white paper.
Sorry, Caroline, can I just add one more thing? I don't know if members actually realise, though, but part of the proposals is to actually get rid of this committee, and that's important. You need to understand that some of the people that may not have had some of the information, we'll only be deciding on very, very limited applications, and I think, that's really, really bad for local democracy.
Yeah. Okay. Point taken. Right. If no one else wants to say anything, agenda item 14 is a list of your delegated decisions, so you need to just consult that if you wouldn't mind. And then I think we've got some site visits to organise, Gary.
We do. And as I seem to recall, we normally, although not slavishly, we normally arrange our site visits a fortnight in between the meetings, which would make the date the 13th of October.
Yes.
Which is a Tuesday, if that fits more people than it offends.
Yeah.
But then it's a question of the visits and what time we set off. We've obviously got the one at Town Street, Old Malton, which is quite a relatively confined site, I would suggest, and not far as a start point. Probably easier to control the time on that. But then the second one is at Ampleforth. That could be quite a bit of a park up and walk round, perhaps. So I'm thinking that one might be a harder one to predict how long we might need. So I don't know if you've got a start time in mind. Days are getting a bit shorter.
Yeah, can we start quite early, because I've got a meeting at 2:30 that day. So
if we started at 9:30 at Malton.
Yeah.
And that might take half an hour.
Yeah.
Or thereabouts.
Yeah.
And then it's probably a good half hour to Ampleforth.
Yeah.
So if we said 10:30ish or whatever time it takes to get to Ampleforth, and then that would be as long as it takes. Where's your meeting? Is it at North Allerton?
No, it's a Skype meeting, so I've got to be home for 2:30.
Oh right, okay.
Do it on your mobile.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll start at Malton at 9:30 and then aim to be at Ampleforth between sort of 10:30 to 10:45.
Yeah, I think that gives us a good 3 or 4 hours.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think the issue with Ampleforth is where to park. We might need to think about that, but it's Alan. We might need to park and walk along a little bit, perhaps. But the other one at Malton, I would have thought we'd be able to pull onto the site to some extent.
Unless if no, we can't do that because of COVID. I was going to say we could share transport, but we can't, can we?
Well, what we might do, as we did last time, is actually ask members if they're turning up or not, because we need to risk assess.
Yes.
Like we did at the other one.
Yeah.
And hopefully, the one at Old Malton is a big enough site where we can literally stand apart and there are buildings to shelter under and things like that. Whereas the one at Ampleforth is in a field.
Yeah.
So I think proximity won't be an issue, but we'll set about it the same way we did last time and ask members to start with by confirming whether they're attending or not.
Okay.
And then take it from there.
Does anybody struggle with that date?
Yes, I do.
Right. Anybody else? No, I'm really sorry, Eric. I think in view of the fact that everybody else looks like they're going to go with that date, I think we'll stick with that date if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
All right. Right, members, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that concludes tonight's meeting.
And Caroline,
yes,
can I just say how well you've done to get this meeting pulled together with all the glitches and gremlins and things tonight. Well done.
Thank you, Sue. That's very kind. Thank you.
So, Caroline, sorry.
Eric.
Yeah. Sorry, I still nearly jumped on what I was going to say. Can I just give a vote of thanks to Paul Taylor for the excellent work he's done with the computers?
Yeah, he's done very well.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, brilliant.
It's been,
Thank you.
a lot of people don't know, but he's been at our online nearly all afternoon.
Brilliant.
But thank you, Paul.
And I think officers would echo that thanks as well. Not Paul tonight, but Chris Taylor.
Yeah.
Meeting and Tim as well. You know, we get good support from our IT colleagues.
Yeah,
I think that's worth recording. That's worth recording, I think.
You know, our IT colleagues have worked hugely hard.
Can I add, maybe we try not doing Teams?
Sorry, our IT colleagues have worked really hard, and I'm very, very grateful for the support, because I do believe that, you know, planning is an important issue, especially to the applicants. So I'm hugely grateful, and I'm grateful to our officers because they've adapted the way they work really, really well. So thank you for that. Steve, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, it's just really a point that came up earlier in the meeting, but it's not urgent really. I can bring it up next time.
Okay, great. Right, everybody, it remains for me to say thank you. Thank you to everybody, officers, IT and all members, for your patience this evening. It's not easy, but we have got there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night,
everybody.
Thank you. Well done,
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
How do you retrieve your tea out at dog?
Oh dear, dear. How do you get out of here?
The telephone at the bottom, Sue, just tap it. Yeah.